All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Kirkpatrick podcast. It's Vanessa and everyone's favorite Kirkpatrick, Dr. Jim Kirkpatrick. That would be a really fun poll. Who's your favorite? Jim, how are you today?
I'm good. And I'm the last one standing, so I am everybody's favorite.
That is fair. That's fair. Well, friends, today we have a very special guest with us today. We've got Dr. Sydney Heimbrock. But before I get into her amazing bio, which is truly incredible, I just want to give a very quick Kirkpatrick update. So first things first, we've got the 2025 events calendar. It has been published. It is live. I know so many of you have been asking for over a month. Where is it? How do I get access to it? Well, it is up on our website. All of the dates for 2025 for bronze and silver are now available, as well as don't forget about the Kirkpatrick Summit that is up there as well. It's still, though, time to get certified in 2024, so we still have an event in December if you're looking to cross off that New Year's resolution. Make sure you sign up for the summit in 2025. It is September 9th to 11th in Dulles, Virginia. We're going to talk a little bit more about it a little bit later, but it is open for enrollment, and we would love to see you there. And I know I've talked a lot this year about the updates to the Kirkpatrick programs and the bronze and the silver programs, but I haven't actually been able to show them to you. Well, that's actually going to change. So November 12th, we have an open house where I will actually be walking you through the new program. You'll get to see all of the updates that have been made, as well as get an inside peek into how we utilize our learning management system and our online community, so you can see all of the things behind the scenes if certification has been on your mind, but you weren't 100% sure. All right, with that, let's get to the really good stuff. I have been so excited to welcome Dr. Sydney to the Kirkpatrick stage. She has become such a close friend over the last year. She's been an amazing, partner and an amazing resource and just a wealth of knowledge. So Dr. Sydney is a former public servant with more than 30 years of experience as a federal government employee. As a senior executive, Dr. Sid served as the federal government's chief learning officer, leading education and training policy and programs for the 2 million strong civilian workforce. While co-chairing the Federal CLO Council, she helps make the Kirkpatrick 4-level evaluation model the standard for all federal agencies. We thank you, Dr. Sid. She led the Federal Executive Institute and President's Management Follows program, and served as provost of HR University, delivering learning and development programs for over 60,000 employees each year. Dr. Sid spent the first half of her career building workforce training programs in the former Soviet Union and Africa. She's especially passionate about bringing human-centered approaches to learning and development by continuously listening to design better learning experiences. Dr. Sid, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's really, really great to be here. I've been excited about this.
Yes. So, okay, you've spent over 30 years as a federal employee. You've served in many different leadership roles. What initially drew you to public service, and how did you find your way specifically into education and training policy?
So it was a long and winding road. And if I may put a plug in for public service, looking back now over this long career, I would not have done anything differently. Public service is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do and be over the course of your career. So when I graduated from my first master's degree, I knew that I wanted to teach, but I didn't know where and how. And I was actually looking at VISTA, which is a Great Society program in the Appalachians that sort of goes in and helps rebuild communities and things like that. Instead, I landed at Job Corps, which is another Great Society program, because they needed someone to come in and help them redesign their education curricula. And so I did that for a year and absolutely loved it because I knew that what I was doing was producing real change for people. Job Corps is designed to help high school dropouts get a GED and get a trade so they can, have a meaningful work life. But at the same time that I was doing that, the Berlin Wall came down. So that'll date me a little bit. But Job Corps is at the US Department of Labor. They were very involved in reconstruction after the collapse of the Soviet system. And so they sent a bunch of us over to bring best practices from US labor policies, programs, and services into that region. Mm-hmm. And what that did was give me a really, really deep appreciation for the importance of skill building over the course of your entire career. Because one of the big challenges we had is because of how the Soviet system worked, people had been trained once and then just did the same job for their entire careers. So imagine someone who's now 50, the entire economic system collapses. Their industries are not competitive, and they have to suddenly retrain, which was not something they expected to have to do in their lives. So it was a huge dilemma, a huge challenge, very complex, but it showed me how skill building is really the engine of economics, politics, social systems, like everything. It really is a key engine. And so that's really what got me hooked. So when I came back after traveling basically nonstop for over 10 years, I came back and worked at the center of government, thinking about how I could provide that same support to my own country. Mm-hmm. So it's been just great.
So what are some key experiences? You kind of alluded to some of it, right? And seeing some of the skill building. What are some of the key experiences from your early career in the Soviet Union and in Africa? I'd love to hear more what you did there that shaped your passion for workforce development.
Yeah, I think, when you're immersed in those environments, you see desperation on a level that, we certainly have it in this country as well, but it tends to be in different pockets. Whereas at the time, there was widespread desperation across the former Soviet Union. And then, of course, I ended up working in Africa, and people's desperation is just very visceral, very everyday. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the source of that desperation is, like I said, the recognition that they don't have the skills needed, not just to get a job, but to navigate the world of work, to navigate, a growing economy, to navigate big changes. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, after the Balkan War of the 1990s, we went into Bosnia. And our goal, actually, the ultimate goal wasn't reskilling. The ultimate goal was demobilization, because it was, as you can imagine, it was a highly volatile situation. Everybody had taken up arms. So it wasn't just military. It was just everyday people had stopped what they were doing, grabbed a gun, and gone to fight. And so we needed to figure out, how do you get those people who've had years and years of that kind of brutal experience come back in to also a very fast changing labor market? And workforce training was the answer. So, it's just that kind of example of how critical it really is for people to see hope, and skills and confidence in those skills are the number one key ingredient to hope.
I think for so often, I don't know about you, Jim, but we sometimes we don't think of training as that deep, or learning or skill building as that deep, because we work, so often in more corporate environments and things like that, or we don't always necessarily directly touch the end user that is actually going to not just consume the education, but as a result of consuming the education, right, are going to reap those benefits. And I'll sometimes say, training's not always life or death. Well, it can be. And I think that sort of work is certainly showcasing truly how impactful it could be and how important putting together really good learning experiences could be.
Yeah. And without the Kirkpatrick model, you can't do that, right? Because you have no idea
Right.
whether what you're doing is producing the desired outcome, how to intervene,
Right.
I mean, all of those, that's what your evaluation model is all about.
Yeah. That actually, so many things I want to say about that right now. So many things. But to your point, right? It gets lumped in as an evaluation model. But I think the work, more so, I think the work that, you, Jim, have done over the years, really taking it from the end as an evaluation model and really talking about how are we taking those lessons and applying them from the beginning and making better choices and change, I think is the difference maker there. So let's go back to the beginning with the Kirkpatrick model, but your beginning. So you first encountered the Kirkpatrick model while working on your dissertation. Can you tell us more about what research question led you there and why you felt it was the right solution?
Yeah. So it's really strange to say now that was 25 years ago, which I'm just, wow, that's gone fast.
Hey, that's sooner than 70 years.
PhD in political science. I had, I wanted to study because I had been involved in government capability building, overseas, and was interested in coming back home to do the same thing. I was interested in, what makes an effective government, particularly given the emergence of newly, or maybe a deeper understanding, but also a shift in the kinds of challenges we were seeing facing government at the turn of the century. And so many of your listeners will be familiar with this concept of VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. It's sort of the hallmark of what the 21st century has emerged to be. And I think we all now really see it unfolding in pretty dramatic ways. So the world is very complex, and we were anticipating that and recognizing that in the field of political science at the time. And so my research question was essentially, what does it take to govern well in that complex environment of the 21st century? And I kept coming back to the people in government, probably because of my experiences, but also because part of the kind of theoretical evidence-based solution that people were coming up with, and so I'll invoke Don Kettle in his really excellent work on Hurricane Katrina response, Bill Eggers, who wrote a book called Governing by Network. The answer to this challenge of, what does government look like in this complex environment was we have to redesign the institutions of government, which were designed in the 19th and 20th centuries, like first half of the 20th century. So think about that. Reality was very different. Who could get a job in government was very different. All kinds of, policies were very different. So we have to redesign those institutions to better match the environment that they're supposed to be supporting. And the idea and the conclusion, based on a lot of really great research, was and is we have to govern by network. We have to understand, drawing on chaos and complexity theory, right? The most effective mechanisms for driving action are network-based, not top-down bureaucratic-based. Well, so let's say that we agree with that, which I did. Then what does it look like then to be a government employee in a network model of governance? That's a very different skill set, right, than what we may have thought about before. So I then embarked on this journey to create a competency model for 21st century governance. Then I asked, okay, so now I know what government should look like. Now I know, or I'm proposing what skills people should have. All right, how do we know that they have those skills? So my next logical step was to look at, all right, what training and learning is being delivered to those people to build those skills, and how is that all of that investment being evaluated? Because maybe if I can get evaluation data, I can look at the skill level.
Right.
Well, it turned out there really wasn't a whole lot of evaluation going on in government at that time. I mean, it was in pockets, but it was very mechanical. It was very output focused. And so then I had basically stumbled on this huge problem of, wow, we need an evaluation model. And that led me to Kirkpatrick. So I looked at various evaluation models and compared them, and like so many people around the world, it's like Kirkpatrick it's right, it's simple. And so because of those two things, it's elegant. So let's just use it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
I would love to read that dissertation if you have a copy of it, by the way. I'm very interested. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim, I didn't know if did you have something that you wanted to ask Dr. Sid?
Yeah, one thing that my pet peeve is people still think they're doing Kirkpatrick. They may have been doing 30 years ago Kirkpatrick or 40 years ago, and what they're doing is to smile sheet for level 1 and a pre and post knowledge test for 2 and a third 90-day survey for level 3. Now you talk about, I know that you talk about continuous feedback, which is kind of the same as continuous evaluation. Why does continuous feedback work better than that sporadic stuff that most people are still doing?
Yeah, so I could go on for a long time about this. Let me try to distill it down.
Good.
When you treat evaluation as a check the box exercise, right? We're running a training program. Okay, I guess we should evaluate so that we can report on the results. What is the point? I mean, what is the point? If you
got something to say it.
if you're going to bother with evaluating, you should actually take action based on the results. Okay. Now go back to this premise that we're saying in order to, survive/thrive in this new environment, you have to be more agile. Right. You have to be more responsive to ever-changing, fast-moving events around you. Okay, that's not just doing an evaluation, printing a report in the old days and sticking it on a shelf. That is listening. That is listening to what is going on with my learner. What is going on with them after they leave my classroom or my digital environment and go back to their work? How can I be responsive to their needs, their experiences, and their changing realities? And the only way to do that is through this human-centered approach, which is listening deeply, understanding drivers, and taking action, meaningful, visible action, both in real time and over the long term, to continuously adjust and improve the learning and development that you're delivering.
Now you work for a company called Qualtrics, and you guys are automation, you guys are extraordinaire. How do you listen with the kind of company that you work for?
So we listen basically think of anywhere people can voice their experience, we're listening or able to listen. It sounds a little creepy, right?
A little bit.
But we're very careful to make sure people are always consenting to be listened to, right? And so let's take a classroom. We're already doing classroom course evaluations, for example. We're all over higher ed, K-12, helping teachers gather feedback from their students. We're also doing it in commercial and government organizations. Okay, so we're getting that feedback during the classroom, and we can do that by sending people a link to our survey platform, post a QR code, right? But we also need to keep engaging with them. And we do that through a number of mechanisms, right? Triggered surveys that are pushed out to them and their supervisors 30, 60, 90 days after they've completed training. Mm-hmm. Annual engagement surveys, which are a very traditional thing in most organizations, where we can listen to changes in expectations for their experiences and then adjust the learning and development to meet those changed expectations. All kinds of listening, right? Through multiple channels.
Right.
Well, you know what I like about that is one of my pet peeves is people talk about continuous improvement while they only do sporadic evaluation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can they do they may do continuous change, but it's not necessarily evaluation unless you're listening and really getting accurate intel to make intelligent decisions about making the change.
Right. Exactly. So let's give you a really concrete example.
Okay.
Let's say that I'm in an organization and I'm designing and delivering digital learning, which more and more is the way we're doing it. We're reserving in-person learning for those content areas that require in-person delivery. It's, to meet people's emerging expectations. So I'm designing and delivering digital learning. That feels like I'm very distant from the learner. But it's really simple to embed an intercept into that digital learning platform. And one of the tools that we're rolling out this year is actual behavioral listening to the digital experience. So what that means is I'm a learner, I'm in a digital platform, I'm moving around the page, and I might get stuck, or I might toggle back and forth because I'm confused. We can sense that. And then we can trigger that kind of movement, then triggers an intercept. And all the intercept says is, are you okay? What do you need? Yeah. How can I help you? I, as a learner, I'm not sent a survey there. I'm just sent a question. That's a helpful question because I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. I can, in my own words, type in, here's what I don't understand, or here's what's freezing on me on the page, right?
Yeah.
We then listen to that open text response, understand it, and can automate a workflow so that if the person mentions a technology problem, there's a ticket automatically generated to the IT.
Really?
Yeah, to the IT folks.
Oh, I probably need that. Yeah.
Yes, you do.
So then IT can come in and say, we're here to help. Let's get you unstuck so you can keep learning. That's where we get to some of the things that you talk a lot about, Jim, which is it's really about performance.
Right.
Right. The learning is the means to the end. What we're trying to drive is performance. I want this person to learn effectively, even in a digital environment, which means I have to be listening to what they're experiencing. Mm-hmm. If it's a content, what I would love to see, which is, again, fairly simple, the mechanics of this already exist. It's just the inspiration and creativity to make it happen. A workflow ticket, then goes to the teaching team.
Correct.
If the student says, I don't understand this concept, right? I can't keep going because I don't understand. Then there's a ticket to the teaching team. A coach comes in.
Oh,
right? So you don't wait until they take the post-course assessment and you discover they didn't understand something. You intervene, you coach, you make sure that they're learning effectively. And that's going to improve their learning performance. That's going to improve their performance back on the job.
What's the experience too? So, I think it's actually in my mind as you were explaining it, describing an experience I had in person in real life. So what nobody can see is my dad is on the other side over here. He's visiting. And last night we went to the supermarket. And for some reason, I don't know if he looked like he didn't know where he was going or what he was doing around the produce. He kept getting asked, do you need some help, sir? Right? Which he didn't.
Lettuce is very confusing.
Lettuce is actually the peppers, and it was more the price of the peppers. But that's inflation for everybody. So anyway, but it wasn't, I think about digital adoption platforms and when you go into a new, you log into your banking system and it gives you this tour and it's like, I don't actually need a tour right now. I'm good. I'm just going to figure it out. It's actually more frustrating and annoying. However, you don't walk into a supermarket and they're giving you a tour, right? People are placed and they're out doing their job and they're ready to intercept if they see that, someone can't, doesn't understand doesn't know where something is or something like that. Do you need help? It's that same experience, but the goal of that, that employee in the supermarket, right, is to provide a great experience so the person wants to return and they don't leave frustrated. And that should also be the goal. So really being creative and gathering that inspiration from real life is what it sounds like, happened, with the Qualtrics team is pulling that in to be able to then support people. But then again, you're gathering data and feedback in a different way. One of the things you said earlier was about, why bother with evaluation? I thought you were going to say, I thought you were going to say, why are we bothering people? Right? We don't want to survey people because we feel like we're bothering them.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're not bothering them if you're trying to be helpful. You're not bothering them if you're going to actually take their very valuable resource, their time, their opinion, their recommendations, and you're going to try to do something with it or at least close that loop. We talk a lot about that, right? Closing, the inability for people to close the loop. That's where the survey fatigue typically happens. You're going to submit a survey and nothing's going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Thank you, Vanessa, because, we do a lot of global research at Qualtrics, and one of our very consistent findings over time is people actually are more than happy to voice what they need and voice what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
What they're not happy about is to see that you just sit and do nothing with the results. Now, it may be that you are doing something, but they can't see it.
Yes.
You have to show them, right? You have to show them even something as simple as, we got your feedback, we're taking action on it, right? You will stand by, you'll see, and then follow up with more communication later. Even better is immediate action, like I was describing, let me help you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not to shamelessly plug, but I'm just, Jim knows I love a shameless plug moment. But that's the reason why I told the team, we have to do an open house. Because I had solicited so much feedback when I first acquired the company, and throughout the years, I'm taking in feedback. We're reviewing, everyone's surveys and things like that, and I want people to see. Even people who have already gone through the certification program doesn't mean you're going to necessarily go through the program again, but I want you to be able to see how the feedback has been implemented and how your voice has contributed to really great experiences for people who are coming after you. As well. But that, that's November 12th, everybody. So make sure you sign up. And if it's past November 12th that you're listening to this, we definitely will have a replay. But people have to see it. I used to get that a lot. I would take in feedback for an organization I was with. We were working on it behind the scenes at the executive table, but because they didn't see something or hear something, they assumed nothing was happening, and it caused more harm than good.
Yeah. And they'll fill the vacuum with rumor.
Yes, they will.
Which is even worse. I mean,
Yes,
and that's where trust really goes downhill.
Right.
And trust is the glue, right, that holds everything together, socially, economically, politically. So
yeah.
I want to talk about the glue, if you don't mind. This is going on a different level here, Sydney. I'm not just going to try. We're not just going to get your tactical wisdom out, but I go different places. I go to San Diego, and they say, "Oh, yeah, we work with Qualtrics. Who do you work with?" "Oh, we work with Dr. Sid." "Oh, that's cool." And then I go to Norfolk. "Oh yeah, she was here a few days ago." Then I think, well, I'm hearing a lot about her. So I go to Lisbon, Portugal. "Oh, Sydney's here, but she's got COVID." And so, so we can't really deal with her. Then I go all the way to Australia because and then, oh yeah, she was just here. And the point I'm making is you have made such a difference and influence on people that they seem to remember what you say, but they remember who you are. So I'm just curious about that thing that drives you to influence people and make a difference in their lives. Can you explain some of that?
Goodness, what a question. So what drives me is the things I've seen and experienced, the suffering that I have seen and experienced, and knowing that we have the capability to do so much better. Do we have the will? And